But, sir, your argument is this. We know the Bible's true because it's the Bible.
No, I know it's true because I've had the revelation in my heart from Jesus. I can't bring him down to a discussion on a human level.
It is
I know in my heart individually.
It's completely emotional. You have these...
No emotion, it's just a fact. It's no emotion.
You have these beliefs, very strong beliefs, as I used to have, and as a result of that, you have very strong emotions. Your mistake is you're accepting your emotions. You're accepting your own emotions as proof of what you believe. Sure.
If there's no God, why are you even discussing it? What would it make any difference to you? Why would you even discuss it?
Well, because it's a very fascinating topic, and because most of the people do believe it and try to use their beliefs to impose their view upon our secular laws.
But what's that got to do with I don't defend any of that. It's my belief in Jesus Christ is a personal thing. It doesn't. I don't need to prove it to anyone. Now I would try to persuade.
There's no evidence that Jesus ever existed.
There's not?
No.
You see why nobody's calling you? Your argument is completely ridiculous.
Actually, many people believe when you look at things rationally and through historical evidence, and if you would look at things, as you said, with an open heart and an open mind, you would believe that you would realize many of the claims in the Bible are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that a man lived inside the stomach of a whale and was regurgitated and was perfectly healthy?
It don't say whale. It says a fish, and yes, I absolutely believe that.
You think that that's rational and logical?
That's what I'm saying. You're trying to bring God to a rational, logical human thinking, and it ain't going to happen. Forget it.
And by the way, in the New Testament, Jesus does refer to it as a whale. And since a whale is not a fish, a mammal, that's yet another scientific error in the Bible.
Go back to the Greek, and you'll see that that's a fish. It's not a whale. It's a great fish.
Well, then
now,
if you
it's been
agree
translated, maybe in the
English. The Bible is hearsay, then we agree.
Which translation and which interpretation is the correct one? It's been handed down and changed for hundreds of years.
The original King James translation talks about unicorns, dragons, satyrs, all kinds of mythical creatures that were believed to be in existence at the time the Old Testament was written.
No. Satan was the dragon. This is not, good grief.
Was Satan the unicorn?
I don't see no unicorn.
You live in a fantasy. You live in a fantasy. There is no God. There is no Satan.
Is the Bible to be taken literally, or is it open to interpretation? Because I may interpret it completely differently from you. Who's to say whose interpretation is correct?
The Bible means what it says what it means. So there's no interpretation.
But it says dragon.
Each individual.
It says dragon, and you just said dragon is Satan. So if it means what it says, it means dragon. It also said in the Bible that that everything revolves around the earth. We now know scientifically that's not true.
I've seen the dragon that fell from heaven, and then it jumps right over to Satan. So it explains itself very well. There's no problem.
You know the Bible's true because it's the Bible and because you feel it in your heart. And neither one of those is scientific or logical.
Revelations and proof. I was a tough nut too, and Jesus proved to me because I asked for the proof.
I've asked for it many times.
And through miracles that you could see, he proved it. Where I laid my hands on people and they immediately got healed. And so, he proved it to me. And I know in my heart he exists.
May I ask you a question? You said that you've placed your hands on people and God used that to heal them. Why does God never heal amputees?
There is so many mysteries out there, and this life is merely a training ground or
if God can do anything, why, if someone had no legs for, let's say, 20 years, why is there not one case where God helped an amputee?
There is not one case.
There is
many cases. There's many cases
where people were given new limbs. There's one.
Many places documented where limbs have grown back.
Well,
in
not in any of the scientific literature. Maybe in the National
Right, because the scientific group refuses to even, and the news media, to even document any of this and put it on the news. But it is documented. But, you know, I cannot make an argument with you. I'm just merely saying that it's up to each individual to accept or disregard. I'm hoping that they accept. I'm not trying to force it on no one. I'm through persuasion, fine. We're not Muslims who want to go out and cut somebody's heads off if they don't switch over to our agreement.
No, but not all the Muslims want to do that either, though.
Well, if they follow the Quran, they do.
Well, if they follow the Bible, we'd all be... David and I would be slaughtered outside the studio today because we're expressing a disbelief, and that's what's ordered in the Bible as well.
Absolutely not.
For 1,500 years, the Catholic Church executed witches and tortured infidels. Galileo himself was almost executed for observing the moons of Jupiter.
Now you're getting back to man thinking, because it's ridiculous. You're talking about the Catholic Church. There is only one church. Church means the body of Christ, and that's all the people that's born again, denominations and all that.
Jesus himself,
things, no doubt about it.
Let's go back to the phone lines here this morning. We do have some emails as well, but let's get another call in here, 623-3865. Go ahead, draw on the morning edition.
Good morning, Reuben.
Good morning.
I talk to you quite often, and I noticed, I just said before your first caller called in, it's been a half an hour and he's not even had a call. But you talked about for a week that you were going to have this guy on today talking about this. Right. I'm no overly religious person. But, this man just said to the previous caller, you live in a fantasy world. There is no God. You have no more proof that there isn't a God than that man had that there is. And it's not fair to say that the man lives in a fantasy world, because he chooses to have faith and believe in something that helps him get through the day. But you've talked about religion a lot of times, and I called in once before and said, you're not from this area. This is a religious area. This kind of stuff will get you into trouble. And I'm telling you, Reuben, this is not a subject that I just don't think that you want to be having a guy on your air telling people that there is no God. When you don't have, like I said, you have no more proof of what you're saying than the previous caller had of what he was saying.
Well, but everything I have found, David, just a second. Everything I have found is that in looking at history and scientific and rational data, I would tend to believe there is a greater presence of proof of a lack thereof than there is for the miraculous existence for. And I would hate to believe that I live in an area where having a type of open discussion on a logical and historic and rational topic such as this would lead people to such an extreme to call for my job.
You're saying that what you think is rational, and that anyone who believes in God is not rational.
No,
you're not calling it. You're calling your argument rational. You're calling anyone who disagrees with you, anyone who believes in the Bible, anyone who believes in, a matter of fact, any religion at all. Apparently, according to your guest, anyone who believes in any religion at all is irrational.
Well, do you believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old?
I don't know how old the Earth is, and neither do you, and neither does anyone.
Oh, yes, science knows how old the Earth is. You make claims
about this person was persecuted and this person was this.
Yes.
You don't have any proof that happened.
We have no proof that Galileo was...
You have written record. That is it. You have no video proof that man was hung or that witches were burned. It's all based on stories handed down through generation after generation after generation.
You're being much too egalitarian about this. You think that all points of view are equally valid. That's nonsense.
No, I don't know. That you assume that I think that all points of view are equally valid. I think that you have no more proof than the caller that you just said lived in a fantasy land. And I think that when you start to throw out things like you live in a fantasy land and there is no God, to a man who was probably in his 70s or 80s, I just think that your argument goes out the window at that point. I think that you then become...
The burden of proof is upon the individual.
No, the burden of proof is not upon the individual. That man said over and over again, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm not trying to prove to you.
Well, he was trying to convince me.
He was not trying to convince you. He was stating what his beliefs are.
Well, am I not allowed?
His relationship with his God is a very personal thing, it should be.
Am I not allowed to state my views?
Absolutely. You're on the air stating your views right now.
Well, you said to Reuben that he shouldn't have someone on espousing my views.
No, I said to Reuben that it was going to get him into trouble, and he would lose listeners, which I've said to Reuben before, by challenging people's faith.
You sound very menacing.